Welcome back. If you're listening, you want to stay ahead of global changes. And today we're tackling something significant brewing in UK immigration.
That's right. We're diving into potential new visa restrictions. Specifically, reports suggest they might target applicants from Pakistan, Nigeria, and Sri Lanka.
Yeah, there are whispers, maybe more than whispers, about a Labour government white paper that could mean, well, much tougher checks for people from those countries.
Exactly. So today, our mission is to unpack this. What could these changes actually look like? What are the reported reasons?
And crucially, what might the consequences be, especially thinking about international students, but also the wider UK situation? Okay, so let's jump right in. These targeted restrictions, what are the reports actually saying?
Well, the core idea seems to be a focus on countries where the data apparently shows higher rates of visa overstays, or perhaps asylum claims after arrival.
And Pakistan, Nigeria, Sri Lanka are the ones being named explicitly in some reports.
Yes, those three are mentioned. It's interesting because the focus isn't necessarily on illegal entry, but more on people arriving legally, say on a student visa, and then maybe staying beyond their visa terms or applying for asylum.
Right. So if you're, say, a prospective student or skilled worker from one of those countries, the suggestion is it might get harder to get that visa approved.
That seems to be the implication, yes. There's speculation that rejection rates could go up. Some sources hint that there might be a government concern about, study or work visas being used as a sort of backdoor to claiming asylum.
But you mentioned data. Is the data solid?
Well, that's a point of contention in some analyses we looked at. Questions are being raised about how reliable or complete that data picture actually is.
Okay, that makes sense. And this ties directly into the next big point, doesn't it? The graduate route. That's been a huge draw for international students.
A massive draw. And the government has already signaled it wants to tighten this route. The really key proposal seems to be requiring graduates to find what they term a high-skilled role to stay longer term.
Which is quite a shift from now, right? Currently, it's more about finding any job above a certain salary threshold.
Exactly. The current system is much more flexible. This high-skilled definition, well, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, how high is high-skilled? Some sources we saw worry it could be defined quite narrowly. That might exclude graduates from lots of perfectly good jobs, valuable jobs even, that just don't fit that specific classification.
Precisely. So for a student planning their future, thinking about post-study work, this introduces a pretty significant level of uncertainty.
And if those pathways narrow too much?
Then the UK's appeal as a top study destination could definitely take a hit. And universities are understandably quite concerned about this possibility.
And it's not just about the numbers, is it? We saw organizations like London Higher raising concerns about potential discrimination.
That's right. They're flagging up the risk that targeting specific nationalities could be seen as discriminatory and potentially politically motivated rather than purely evidence-based.
Their argument being that these policies kind of overlook the positives.
Yes, basically that international students bring huge economic benefits, tuition fees, spending in local economies, plus, cultural diversity and soft power. They feel these contributions might be getting lost in the push to cut overall numbers.
Which leads us nicely to the bigger political context. There's this upcoming UK immigration white paper and a stated goal to cut net migration quite drastically.
Yeah, the current net migration figure is pretty high, around 728,000 reported recently. There's definitely electoral pressure and a lot of public debate around bringing that down. This white paper is expected to be Labour's roadmap for how they intend to do that.
So these potential visa changes, the graduate route tightening, they're seen as tools to achieve that reduction.
It certainly looks that way. They're part of the policy mix being considered. But as you hinted, there are warnings coming from economists and business groups too.
Right, about the potential downsides.
Exactly. Concerns that overly restrictive policies could actually harm economic growth. Many sectors rely on international workers, and universities depend on international student fees and the research talent they bring. It's a balancing act.
A complex balancing act, it sounds like. The government has said nothing is off the table, which suggests they're looking broadly.
That phrase does indicate a wide range of options are being considered, yes.
So summing up, it feels like a moment of real flux, a lot of uncertainty, especially if you're someone planning to come to the UK from, well, anywhere, but perhaps especially these named countries.
That's a very fair summary. The landscape feels much less predictable than it maybe did a year or two ago regarding visa rules and post-study options.
Which really leaves us with a big question for you, the listener, to think about. As the UK tries to manage immigration numbers, where will the balance ultimately fall? Will it be mostly about hitting those reduction targets in the short term?
Or will there be a deeper consideration of the potential long-term economic hits and the sort of social impacts of making it harder for international talent and students to come here?
Something to definitely keep an eye on as we wait for more details on that white paper. It's about weighing those immediate pressures against the potentially longer-lasting consequences.